Hello. Today we are going to discuss about the sources of knowledge. What is knowledge? Knowledge requires three necessary conditions: justified, true, belief. Justified knowledge must be a rational and valid. True knowledge must be a factual and authentic. Belief knowledge must have a trust, confidence in it. Sources of knowledge. There are two types of sources: primary sources and secondary sources. What is primary sources? Primary sources are the original records created by first-hand evidence about an event, object, person, or work of art. Historical and legal documents, audio and video recordings, encyclopedia, interviews, survey. These are some of the examples of the primary sources. What is secondary sources? Secondary sources are documents, text, images, and objects about an event created by someone who typically refer the primary sources for their information. Textbook, documentary movies, art book, movie, newspaper, magazine, articles. These some of the examples of the secondary sources. Again, this source of knowledge classified as reliable and unreliable sources. Reliable sources means the sources are those which follow a systematic and scientific study before regarding particular information as a knowledge. Unreliable sources means unreliable sources are basically unproven and untested. Sources of acquiring knowledge: superstition, authority, experience, scientific, reasoning, two types of inductive and deductive. These are the sources of acquiring knowledge. Superstition: gaining knowledge through subjective feelings, believing in magical events. But these may be unproven and untested, and hence it is unreliable. Then authority: gaining knowledge a respected or famous person tells us. This is a relative term, authority. For a small child, his parents or his teacher can be the authority. For a person working in an industry, the management will be an authority. Then third one is the experience. Experience: gaining knowledge by seeing, smelling, touching, tasting, hearing. But when we get actual experience of something, we accept it as true. Then a reasoning method. There are two types of acquiring knowledge by reasoning. One is deductive and another is inductive. In deductive reasoning, we derive conclusion regarding a particular instance based on already accepted principles. For example, we can say that the measure of all angles of a triangle is 180 degrees. This is a triangle. Hence, the measure of all the angles of this triangle must be 180 degrees. Then in inductive reasoning, we study a number of instances and on the basis of these number of observations move towards a generalized principle. For example, this medicine was found useful for treatment treating this patient from cold. Similarly, it was useful for many other patients. Hence, this medicine is useful in treatment of person suffering from cold. This is the example for the inductive reasoning. Then one method is a scientific method. It is most reliable, objective, systematic and a way of gathering knowledge. This is the most reliable method, that is the scientific method. Now there are some steps of this scientific method. First is problem situation, then gathering some information, then formulated the hypothesis, then conduct the experiment, analyze the data and formulate the conclusion. These are the steps of scientific method. Now we see one example for this scientific method. The problem is students are not able to understand the course of content through my lecture. Okay, this is the problem. Now, for gathering information, I gather some information. Are they finding it boring? Do I need to try out some other method? Then formulate the hypothesis. Using group activity may help them understand better. Conduct experiment. For conducting experiment, I have to plan and implement some group activities for teaching content. Then analyze the data. Give some tests and take feedback and analyze. Then conclusion. It is conclude that the student understand better content by taking a group activity. This is, we can say that, the reason. This is the procedure of this scientific method. Now, students, we see the generation of knowledge. In first generation, or we can say that in an ancient period, there is a teacher-student interaction. What type of interaction? It referred to as a Gurukul system. The use of the face-to-face mode or most of the knowledge transmitted orally. But limitation for this is that it is only accessible to limited people. In next generation, we call this as a print media generation. Here, book, newspaper used for the knowledge. Again here, the limitation was that it was possible to get a knowledge only if you know how to read and write. Then in the next generation, we call this as a modernization, industrialization and mechanization. The next generation focus on non-formal way of education and transmission of knowledge. To reach out to the masses, knowledge was transmitted through various technological aids and machines. Then next is a distance education and open schooling. The focus in this generation was on lifelong education. The learning and gaining knowledge as per the convenience of the learner. Then last is the electronic media and internet. It is the age of competition and we have to be constantly updated with whatever going on all around the world. The online courses and e-learning modes have become popular nowadays. Knowledge that comes before us, it is authentic. We see some education implications of these sources of knowledge. First, we have to give some example to the student to be aware of the relationship between facts, concepts, principles, and theory. Make use of variety of media so as to make your teaching learning process more effective and relevant. We encourage our students actively engage themselves in the process of scientific inquiry. Make students realize the difference between a particular reliable and unreliable sources of knowledge. Make use of variety of techniques so that you make their knowledge more reliable.